Hey, young people. Welcome to week 2, day 1 of class. This week we're going to talk about something called place clues. Before we get through today's lesson, I just wanted to talk about a procedural issue. Make sure that you're submitting your assignments for the week. If you are missing assignments, don't be surprised if I put in a 0 for the assignment at the end of the week. You still have time to turn in your assignment without late credit, but I'm just putting the 0 in to poke and prod you into submitting assignments. Today we're going to start to talk about something called place clues in Latin. Place clues are all sorts of ways of relating either motion towards something, motion away from something, or indicating that activity is happening in a certain place. So far you've been able to indicate motion, but you've done so using prepositions. Check this out. If you wanted to say, for example, that Aeneas sailed from Asia, you had to use a preposition. Ab is a preposition. Aeneas ab Asia navigavit. If you wanted to say that Aeneas came to Africa, you had to say Aeneas ad Africam venit. Ad is a preposition. It means to. If you wanted to say Aeneas lived in Italy, you had to say Aeneas in Italia habitavit. In is a preposition. There are certain classes of words that never take a preposition. So, for example, this is a class of word, all small islands. If you're not sure exactly what's the difference between a small island and a big island, we're going to talk about that later this week. But anyway, small islands, cities, towns, and the words domus, feminine, house or home, which you learned in chapters 3 of Latin 1 and 17 this year. We went over it 2 different times. And rus rurus, neuter, meaning countryside. We talked about the related adjective rusticus in chapter 15, first semester, but we never learned the word rus per se. These 3 classes and 2 specific words, so small islands, cities, towns are the classes, domus and rus are the specific words, they don't take prepositions. How can you remember these specific words, small islands, cities, towns, domus, and rus? Well, this is kind of timely. I always teach this as, if you are sicked, S-I-C-T, if you're sick, you go to the doctor, the D-R. So what happens if a word is a small island, city, town, or the specific words domus or rus? But you can't include a preposition. So if you wanted to say Aeneas sailed from Troy, Troy is a city, so it falls into the category of small island, city, town, domus, or rus. You can't put a preposition in front of it. And in fact, it's quite easy. You just omit the preposition and leave it in the ablative. If you wanted to say Aeneas came to Carthage, Carthage is a city in North Africa we're going to talk about later in this chapter, you simply omit the preposition ad and leave it in the accusative case. What if something is happening in a specific place? This is where you learn something called the locative. It's kind of neat because so far, most every noun chart you filled in has been nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, ablative. There is a secret 6th case called the locative. Why do we not learn the locative for everything? Why is it not in all of the charts starting in chapter 1 when you learn the first declension? The reason is the locative only exists for the sict doctor words. It only exists for small islands, cities, towns, and the words domus and rus. What percentage of words in Latin is that? Maybe 1%. So 99% of words don't have a locative to begin with. And the 1% of words that do have a locative, you can figure it out based on the other cases, on the other declension forms. Here are the rules for the locative. If a small island city or town is a first or second declension singular noun, the locative is just the genitive singular. So Roma for Rome becomes Romae in Rome. And by the way, you can't tell the difference between Romae in Rome and in Romae of Rome. You would have to use context to figure that out. Brundisium is a city in Italy. Brundisium is a second declension neuter, so it becomes Brundisii in Brundisium. And again, you can't tell whether it's in Brundisium or of Brundisium without context. Most everything else, the locative form looks just like the ablative. So you notice up here for this, I said first and second declension singular nouns. How many small island cities and towns aren't singular? Well, the Romans loved to name places with plural words. So Atenae, their word for Athens, it's first declension, but it's first declension and it's always plural in form. There's no way to say Athens singular. In English, I guess it's kind of the same way. You'd have to say Athen. We're going to Athen for vacation. So Atenae, because it's plural, even though it's first declension, it becomes ablative in form, and this would be the locative in Athens. By the way, some people will say that the locative is the same as the ablative. When you say that, you're not really saying that the two things are identical one for one. You're just saying basically it's spelled the same way as the ablative. If you have Athenes in a sentence, it'll be really clear whether it's in Athens or by Athens, with Athens, from Athens, whether it's an ablative or whether it is a locative. It's going to be one or the other in a sentence. Carthago becomes, because it's third declension, Carthagine in Carthage. Domus is irregular. It becomes domi. You learned this in chapter 3 last year. Rus becomes rori, just like domi in the countryside. Check out these notes. Copy them down onto either a piece of paper or type them up in a word processor, and this will get you your credit for the day. Thank you.